Thank everybody for coming out today. I want to give you a little bit of background about myself because it's going to help explain what we're doing here at StackPath. In 2005, I was one of the founders and the CEO of a company called SoftLayer. It was one of the first cloud computing companies in the world. We grew rapidly through the late 2007, 2008, and when iTunes and the App Store and Google Android and the rest of the mobile tools came out, is really when our company exploded. In 2013, we sold SoftLayer to IBM. I stayed with IBM for 2 years, and SoftLayer became the basis of the IBM cloud and also Bluemix. And over the course of those 2 years, we expanded to 40 data centers worldwide, literally tens of millions of physical and virtual machines, and a scale that was only known by a few companies in this world. I talk about the big four being Amazon Web Services, Google, Azure, and IBM SoftLayer. So I come to this world in the CDN world from a world of scale. And when I went out and looked at what was wrong with cloud, I said we're missing the security piece. Because up until cloud, security was very easy. It was on-premise, it was traditional firewalls, IPS, IDS, AV, those types of services. And then we got to cloud scale or hyperscale, none of those things worked anymore. And I said, why isn't anyone focusing on security for cloud? And so when I left in February of 2015, I turned and said, okay, how could you possibly do this? And after a few months of study, I came down with the basis of, I have to start with CDN. CDN is the man in the middle between all of the data and all the eyeballs. And so you've got to start with CDN and then wrap security around it so you can protect the customers both ways. In looking at the internet, I made some proclamations that people looked at me in 2015 and said, you're crazy. Because what I said was by 2020, I didn't think the internet would be usable anymore. Unless someone fixes security, it's not going to work. You will connect to it and do what you have to do, and then you'll disconnect from it because it'll be such a filthy, nasty, dangerous place that you won't want to be connected 24/7. And when I went out and started pitching and talking to people, everybody said, oh, Lance, you're crazy. That can't possibly be right. And I said, well, if we look at the size of the DDoS attacks, we look at the number of malware that comes out every day, the iterations on that, and you put IoT and machine learning on top of that, it's going to become such a nasty world that you won't want to stay connected to it 24/7. Somebody, some company, some industry has to solve the security issue or the internet's not going to work like it does today. That's why I say it's going to be different in 2 years, 3 years. So when I looked at all the traffic, I think all of the numbers are way low. Because when I look at traffic by Cisco, we said we're doing 1 zettabyte today. By 2020, it's going to get to 2.3. Those are staggering numbers, but they're from Cisco. When you really dive in to the big four, the guys that are operating at scale, guess who they're not using? They're not using Cisco. They're not using Juniper. They're rolling their own routers, they're rolling their own switches, and so nobody really knows how big the big four are and the scale that they're growing at. The Google representative was here 1 hour ago, and you saw a lot of numbers, but they didn't talk about their scale. No one really talks about their scale when it's hyperscale or at full scale. And so when I look at this at 2.3 zettabytes, I think it's going to be 5, 10 zettabytes. I think it's a multiple of what's going on. When you add into that IoT coming online, we're putting 5 million IoT devices online every single day. Just the IoT devices by 2020 will be 600 zettabytes. That's going to be almost 300 times the traffic of normal content traffic that we see today. And if you have all of those things out there, we've already seen with Mariah Botnet that traffic is not secure. Those IoT widgets out there are not playing well and can be used and abused by hackers to create even bigger problems. Malicious activity continues to rise. Just this morning, starting Friday, when WikiLeaks released the NSA tools to the world, you had, at last count this morning, when I turned off CNBC to come here, there was 45,000 companies in 74 countries had been compromised over a weekend by security. Now, if there was man-in-the-middle security out there, we could have stopped that. But as it sits today, no one is able to do anything. DDoS attacks are growing faster than ever. In 2015, my business plan said that I thought DDoS attacks would get to 10 terabits by 2020. Donald Trump's website was the largest at 350 gigs last March. Then we had the Krebs attack, which was almost 700 gigs in August. Then we had the Dyn attack, which was a terabit a month later. Then we had the OVH attack, which was almost 2 terabits a month later. And now we have the Mirai botnet out there that they're saying is capable of 4 to 5 terabits. I think 10 terabits happens before the end of this year. That's how big and how fast this problem is growing. And you can't really blame the experts because they're all using linear math to predict what's going on. The growth of the traffic, the growth of the malware, the growth of DDoS attack. But what they're not taking into account is hyperscale. Hyperscale changes everything. These things are changing exponentially and they're growing exponentially. And the 4 or 5 companies in the world who are large enough to understand it don't talk about how fast they're growing. So it makes it even harder for researchers to kind of figure out what's going on. I even hate to show this slide because everybody gets, your eyes roll back, you're like, oh no, this slide about all the companies that got hacked. It happens so often, no one in this room cares anymore. I stood in my kitchen 2 weeks ago with my wife and we had 5 things laying on the bar. 2 of our credit cards hacked, our insurance had hacked, our kids' preschool had been hacked, and the Dallas municipal alarm system had been hacked. 5 things laying on my counter in one day. And we both look at each other and we're like, whatever, there's the new credit cards. We've become so used to it, nobody's focused on it, nobody's really talking about it. CDN is evolving because it's in the middle. When I look at this, I look at the numbers provided by Dan, by Gartner, by Forrester, all the other numbers. This is staggering growth. 34% CAGR on a very large number, as we said. And I would tell you, I think these numbers are half or 20% of what it's actually going to be. Because no one really talks about the hypergrowth of the cloud. You don't see Amazon releasing how much CloudFront. You don't see Google releasing how much theirs uses. You don't see the big guys talking about how much is actually being pushed and consumed out there from a CDN perspective. So I think it's much larger than the traditional CDN industry. 2 things that will happen that will change CDN this year and next year. This year, mobile overtakes all landline traffic for the first time. By the end of this year, mobile will be 51% of all traffic. Next year, over-the-top video overtakes broadcast TV. Be the first time ever. Those 2 things, to me, looking at it from with my cloud perspective, looks just like Apple's iTunes and iStore and Google's Android. Because those were the 2 things that launched cloud into the stratosphere. And when I look at these 2 facts, those 2 facts are what's going to change CDN and make it explosive over the next couple of years. CDN is no longer just CDN, obviously. It's evolved into a wide range of edge services. You heard about Google talk about theirs this morning. I see a lot of our competitors talking about edge services. You know, when you say CDN, it's content delivery. We started off with delivering websites. Then it got into file downloads. Now you're doing API delivery and protection. Then we've added WAF, and we add DDoS protection. You add all these ancillary services on top. The problem is most, if not all of the legacy players are built with an enterprise infrastructure. It's that triple stack router network architecture. They build silos of servers for services. These 100 servers are for WAF, these 100 services are for DDoS, these 100 services are for this. And that's how they scale. And that simply doesn't scale when you get into cloud type hyperscale. Legacy CDN isn't ready for all of us. So what we are doing is we're going to do something completely different. When we look at the world, I'll try to simplify it. There's only 3 types of data origins. You're either in a public data center, you're in a private data center, or you're in a public cloud. That's where all the data in the world lives. And then on the other side, you have the consumers, the prosumers, the consumers who are at work doing what they shouldn't be doing, the enterprise or the employees working, and then you have IoT. And then you have the opportunity to build something in between. If we believe all of the numbers and the research and what's going on and what's driving CDN, CDN has gone from something that only the largest media companies in the world used just a few years ago to something that's so commoditized and so easy to onboard and use now. It's projected that 70 or 80% of all traffic will be over a CDN somewhere. So if you can get into the middle between the data and the eyeballs, you can protect them. And that protection is going to go both ways. Typically, security is thought of as protecting a perimeter. You build a data center, you put up your firewalls, you put up all your tools, and you try to break people from getting in. Here, you're protecting the data, the data centers of the world from the eyeballs, and then in reverse, you're protecting the eyeballs of the world from the data centers who are sending out malicious traffic unknowingly. We look at the world a little different. We look at it as building blocks. So we started with CDN. We added WAF, we added DDoS, file delivery, logging, predictive analytics. All of those things talk to a centralized core. Then we use machine learning and AI so that we can talk back to all those services. So every single service we deploy is secure in nature. It's not a service that you add security onto, it's just a secure service. So even our CDN is secure. But by building a cloud platform, a 2-layer network that's highly scalable with servers that are fungible to be used for any service, it can auto-scale far and wide. So the CDN can auto-scale as needed, the WAF can auto-scale as needed, the next service that we haven't thought of yet can auto-scale as needed. Now here's where we think the game changes. We're creating a multi-sided platform. This fall, we will release edge compute, edge storage, secure DNS, and other services, and open it up to our customers to build things on the platform, on our platform, worldwide. Who do I think is going to use it? I think security companies, third-party security companies, are going to add tools to this. I think you're going to see all kinds of media companies do last-mile dynamic stuff at the edge. You're going to see a lot of data analytics companies who are going to be able to do a lot of forensics at the edge, real time. You're going to see IoT gateways where things like cars and other things can talk to each other, and they're going to be hitting a local POP in the city that's closest to where those vehicles are. And then the unknown. This is the same position we were in at SoftLayer in 2005. When we created SoftLayer, I could not tell you that Facebook, Tumblr, WhatsApp, Yelp, some of the largest internet properties in the world built on the platform. Those industries, those verticals, some of them didn't even exist at the time we built the platform. The platform is what allowed them to build what they did. Here we're doing the same thing. We're building a security platform at the edge with all of these tools and APIs and onboarding. It's going to be frictionless, on-demand, easy to consume, all the things about cloud, and enable anyone in the world to come build whatever they want. And then the first question I always get is, well, somebody could build a CDN and compete with you. Yes, they could. They could build any service that I can build on the platform. And I look at it as, if they build it better than me, then we should lose at that service. So we're going to open this up, and when we do, I think it's going to be game-changing at the security that hits the internet when this happens. Over the last 18 months, we've spent a lot of money and a lot of time rebuilding the entire network globally. We did have several acquisitions. We bought Highwinds CDN, Max CDN, Fireblade, WAF, a DDoS company, and some other smaller companies, and we've rolled all of that into this. And we're in every major carrier exchange, revamping the entire network. We have sort of the last mover advantage now. Every single port inside of our network is 100 gig. Every single server is 25 or 50 gig or higher. We don't have the legacy issue of having hundreds of thousands of servers out there that we have to upgrade or we have to retrofit to make happen. I can do it with a much smaller footprint and a much more robust by allowing everything to be fully agile and fully scalable at cloud. Today, you can go to our website and you can sign up for these services. We call it Secure CDN. We have a full service CDN with WAF and DDoS included, because we feel like you can't have that without those two key features. And as we roll the additional features in the next few months, you will see not only features from StackPath proper going out, but you will also see features from all of our customers who come and sign up and build on top of the platform and use that cloud platform at the edge, and also have access to the analytics that we're taking in that we can feed back to them via API. So, and with that, just again, the three names that we acquired, and that is my 20 minutes. Thank you. Kick these guys out of here. Oh, sure, yes.
I'm not sure if this is on topic or not, but how do you see the future of the security path as related to, say, Intel's roadmap, where, if you will, the common computing platform is going?
The common computing platform, I still think you're going to, you can use the tools and the hardware, but it's going to be, security is going to be about the analytics, the data that you pull from the services. Because we know, or I know from operating an organization as large as SoftLayer, that when I get a view into the world from thousands and thousands of customers that are doing everything across the globe, and I can consolidate that information and then make real-time changes in security back to the network or back to the hypervisors or back to whatever applications, whatever the right layer is, in addition to what Intel's doing inside the chipsets and processors and things that they're doing, you may be writing back to that layer, who knows? But the value is in the data. Things are happening so fast. A year ago it was 40 pieces of new malware a day. This year it's 100. Next year it's going to be 500. Machines are going to have to find, detect, mitigate, and delete on the fly. Like the concept of matching certs and all that's gone. Like it won't happen. You'll never be able to keep up. So, and we think that's what's going.
You said the big four don't really disclose their CDN statistics. Is there a reason why you're so secretive about that?
I think it's one of those competitive numbers that no one wants to share. And I think it's one of those things that no one really believes. The growth, I can tell you from running SoftLayer that when I began to tell people that we were putting up tens of thousands of servers a month, people were like, yeah, whatever. Like, what are you smoking? And because there's only a subset of custom companies in the world who operate that scale, and if you've never seen it, it's hard for you to absorb it. I used to tell people it's like if you lived on a remote island, I tried to explain what a skyscraper was. If you've never seen one, it'd be very hard to visualize one. And it's the same thing with these cloud scale models. I mean, it's enormous. There were times we were ordering 40, 50,000 physical servers a month. So, any other questions? Thanks.